Okay. You let me know when I can go, Brad.
You're ready to go, Brett. We're ready.
All right. Well, just want to welcome everyone to this Zoom call. We're certainly excited to formally announce our contract extension with the CEO of Sac Nation, Chris Jones. Over the last few years, Chris has really proven to be an elite player at his position and really one of the best defensive players in the National Football League. With that being said, Chris is equally as talented off the field. Our fans love him. Our community loves him. And again, just can't say how excited and thrilled we are to continue his career here. And for how much he's accomplished already, we certainly feel he's just scratching the surface with his age and his talents. We're certainly expecting more great things to come. Before I turn it over to Coach, I do want to thank once again my outstanding staff that works on the second floor, Brant Tillis, Chris Shea, for the hard work they've done. We certainly had a very busy offseason, but these guys have been relentless, and we're certainly excited, to get a lot of the things that we wanted to when we set out in the offseason done. And then the Katz brothers, Michael and Jason Katz. Before this process started, I had a lot of respect for these guys, but as we've gone through this process, that respect has grown substantially just because they've been patient with us throughout this whole process. They put their trust in us, and we trusted them. And, we knew that we just need a little time to get this thing done because all parties were committed to keeping Chris in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform for a long time. So we're certainly appreciative for their help and their understanding. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Coach Reid.
All right. Thanks, Brett. Hey, congratulations to Chris Jones. This is so well-deserved. He's done everything that he's needed to do to become a top defensive tackle in the National Football League. He probably could be the same thing at defensive end on the outside as he is on the inside. He's very talented. He brings a great personality to our football team. Nothing's impossible in his mind, and that's the way he goes about it. So I've been proud of the commitment that he's given to the organization and how he's handled himself again in the weight room, in the classroom, on the field, and then in the community. It's been tremendous. My hat also goes off to Brett and his crew with Brant and Chris, that they've done another phenomenal job along with the Katz brothers. I always joke the Katz brothers that really the only reason we signed Chris back was because their mom makes the best brownies you've ever had. So I'm still expecting to get those, Chris, and the Katz brothers. So they've really just done a great job of working and working it out together. And again, Brett and his crew, what a phenomenal job they've done this offseason. None of it's possible without Clark Hunt and the commitment that he's made to the Kansas City area, to us as members of the organization, and Mark Donovan's also a part of this, being the president of the organization. So all in all, it's great I think it's just great for this football team. We got a lot of work ahead of us, but this is sure a great start. And again, we appreciate Chris, and Chris heads up. He's his own man, so he's headed this thing up.
We losing there?
Yeah, I think we lost Coach there.
Oh, I just said when we're done here, I don't know where you lost me, but I was lost in cyberspace for a minute. It's quite exciting. I'll turn it over to Chris from here.
Coach Reid, Brett Veach, thank you guys for the kind words. Want to give a thank you to the Hunt family and the Chiefs organization. Also, Mark Donovan, the president of the Chiefs. And the third floor, the second floor group, Brett Veach, my dog, Brent Tillis, the way he's structured everything, he was able to make sure that not only he signed me, but signed Pat and get this thing done. And I'm just so excited to spend the long haul on the back end of my career with Kansas City Chiefs. The organization drafted me. They took a chance. Thanks to Ryan Nutt. I can never forget Ryan Nutt for the chance and that he took on me, a kid out of Mississippi State with ambitions and goals. And I'm actually ready to work, man. I always envisioned my career as being a Chief, and thankfully I'm there for the long haul.
Okay, let's start with questions, and we'll start with BJ Kishler. Go ahead, BJ.
Thanks, Brad. And Chris, congratulations. I've got a question for you a little bit later, but this question is for Coach and Brett. First, Brett, just with the challenges that this offseason presented with COVID and everything else, are you surprised that you and your staff were able to retain all of the players that you have? And then, Coach, the question for you will just be, you've often used the phrase energy givers. And I know that Chris fits right into that, but just how does this signing kind of lock that in and that personality that you talked about with the defense for the next few years?
Brett, you can go ahead.
Yeah, well, BJ, we certainly had some obstacles to overcome. I wouldn't say we were surprised because we were driven and determined, this whole time at the combine. I said that, we were going to be at work and really lay our plan out. And our plan was to do a lot of the things that we've done this offseason, but right at the top of that list was Pat Mahomes and Chris Jones, and everyone knew that. So when you have two elite players, you don't find these guys. These guys, you just don't draft them year after year. These guys come once every couple of years. Chris is not a guy that you can just find in any draft. So when you have a player that talented, that special, you're driven and determined. And look, I think that it took longer than we anticipated just because of the unknown. So I would say, we weren't surprised because we were driven and determined to make sure that Chris Jones was the Kansas City Chief.
Yeah. So my part is just what you said, BJ, is that Chris is an energy giver. He comes to work with a smile on his face and works hard. And people can they can misunderstand his vivacious personality, but and substitute that in that he might not be as smart because he's having a good time. But he's a brilliant kid. He like I said, he's been right in touch with this whole thing here. He goes about football that same way. When it's time to crank it down, he knows everything by every position that's going on and wants to know. And so, and that those are the kind of guys that we like having on the football team. It's we throw a lot at them and at all positions, and you want guys that can digest it. And Chris is able to do that. Still keep a smile on his face, still bring energy every day, and that helps guys feed on, especially during the tough times.
All right, let's go to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Brett, understanding that there's so much uncertainty where the cap is going starting next year, what's your comfort level that you'll have the wiggle room to do whatever it is you feel you need to do going forward once these contracts start kicking in?
Yeah, well, we don't know yet. And, I go back to BJ's question about being surprised. And my statement was we weren't surprised. It just took longer. And, Adam, to your question, that's really why this took some time, because we were just trying to go through all the scenarios. Again, we don't know where the cap's going to be, but we have to have plans ready in place for whether it grows, stays the same, it dips, at what levels, what we need to do. What moves we have to make. So, we have a plan and we'll be able to go in some different areas. But once we got to a level where we felt comfortable that over the next few years that, we have enough game planning in place to protect ourselves, then we felt good. So again, the whole time we felt confident that something would get done. We just needed to go through we waited for as much information as we could get. And then at a certain point, once we felt pretty good about our setup for the short and the long term, then we're able to pull the trigger.
Let's go to Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. Teicher actually just asked what I wanted to ask to Brett, but Chris, I wondered if you could sort of touch on your journey as a whole. I mean, when you look back at coming from Houston, Mississippi, I mean, does signing a deal like this sort of allow you to think back at how far you've come, and if so, what stands out most about your journey here?
The hard work I actually put in to get here and where I'm at today, and then actually thinking about sleeping on a two-seater couch. That's the first thing I actually did when I signed the deal. I called my grandmother, and we actually talked about me sleeping on her living room couch. It was 2 seats. It came from my living room. It was so old, so we put it in a dining room. and got a new living room set, and that was my bed for my end of my junior year and my senior year of high school. I slept on that couch and we just talked and cried about it. So you actually go back and look at those times and reminisce, and makes you really grateful for this.
Let's go to James Palmer. Go ahead, James.
All right, thanks, Brett. This is for Chris and Brett. Chris, you kind of were outspoken about not wanting to play on the tag. If this deal didn't get done, were you genuinely not going to play this year? And then Brett, with him kind of being outspoken in that sense, how did that play a part in your guys' negotiations and kind of how this went down?
Me personally, I kind of had a feeling the deal was gonna get done. Actually, it was a crazy story. Actually, when Pat deal got done, as soon as this deal got done, Pat texted me and said, "Let's get this thing done." I left some on the table. Let's get this thing done. And that's when I had the security that that me and the Chiefs was gonna work something out. I was confident in that, and to make sure that they was gonna get something done.
Yeah, and as we were working through this process, again, the Katz brothers did an amazing job of just showing their patience and being understanding of the current climate and what was going on. We met at the combine and we told them that, listen, this is a priority. Chris Jones will be a Chief, but help us navigate this free agency process, and then we'll be in good shape to understand where we are. And then as soon as we kind of got through that process, this Corona hit and everything got kind of turned upside down. So it would have been very easy for Chris to get upset, for the Katz brothers to get upset, but they understood. They understood the climate, and they understood that things were going to get done. They were just going to take longer than anticipated. But again, I go back to just being able to express our commitment to Chris and just getting through the free agency period, and then the pandemic, and then also understanding that we're also navigating a Pat Mahomes contract. But they trusted us, and they believed that once we had all the information we needed, and once we got some things in order, that we were certainly going to address Chris Jones. One of the things that got kind of taken, got taken the wrong way was our commitment and appreciation for Chris Jones. How the Chiefs feel and this and that. I mean, the whole time, Chris and his agents knew that how much we loved him, and we were absolutely going to do everything we could to keep him here. So I think that kind of got, just because there wasn't a lot of talking, and the reason why there wasn't talking is because both sides needed more information. So the reality of it is we certainly love Chris and wanted him here, and the agents believed in us, and we certainly are able to get this done through hard work and just a lot of trust and dialogue.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. My question is for Brett. Brett, you mentioned that Chris is a player that you just simply can't draft. I know that you typically will zone in on these guys that you evaluate as blue players. What makes Chris that way for you?
Well, I mean, he's unblockable. I mean, as an interior pass rusher, I mean, with his size, his athleticism, his quickness, I mean, it takes two guys to block him. I mean, all you have to do is turn the Super Bowl on and see what he did in the Super Bowl against a very good 49er team. When this guy goes, you can't block him. You have to put two bodies on him. But again, he's a young guy, and we certainly feel that he's just scratching the surface. He's going to continue to get better and better and better. And Chris had stated, when we announced via Twitter that we signed him, that his goals were to be Defensive Player of the Year. And believe me, talent-wise, there's no stopping him. So if he can stay healthy and just keep on this upward trajectory, there's no doubt in my mind he has all the tools needed to do that.
Let's go to Seren Petro. Go ahead, Seren.
Kind of one for Brett and one for Coach Reid. Brett, the Mahomes contract came first, and then Chris Jones contract gets done. But were you kind of was there a little, massaging of both of them where you needed one guy to do this to make the other guy fit? And were they kind of working in concert? Were the negotiations kind of going on in concert, or did it go Pat and then Chris? And then for Coach Reid, getting Chris Jones back, it's 20 of 22 starters that you had in the Super Bowl, and really 22 guys that started during the course of the year that you'll have back. Most teams have, that have gone to back-to-back Super Bowls, 6, 7, 8 guys that turn over. Do you worry that now having everybody back, maybe there's a sense of complacency that you don't have guys that have that hunger that are looking for that first ring?
Well, going in to the off season and knowing that our priorities were Pat Mahomes and Chris Jones, we got through the free agency process and we had a plan that we felt we could execute independently of each other, and we were ready to go. But the curveball was, Seren, as you mentioned, just the unknown. So, you know, to your question, going into this, we were able to come up with an independent plan for both and just be able to hopefully execute and not have to worry about one being done before the other. But this did take a curve with the unknown cap for next year and just being able to allocate our funding in a proper manner that we can handle both players. So to your question, you know, the honest answer is that it did take some massaging for both of these players and their cash flows early on to make sure that we can handle and be protected against you know, the cap next year. And again, we still don't know where that's going to go. So going into this, I think that we were all systems go. But as this got closer to training camp, we really needed more time to work through the deals and kind of have one work with each other to get them done.
Yeah, Seren, I'm not as concerned about that, having everybody back. I feel the energy that the guys have. I think now it's just important that we bear down and go through the process of getting the work done. And from what I could tell from talking to the guys, everybody's ready to do that. And you know, and now we just have to do it. So we got to take day by day and take it day by day and work our tail off. So we understand that that's going to take place. And listen, if we can be half as good as your beard's looking right now, dude, we'll be good.
All right, guys, we have time for a couple more for Coach and Brett before we let them go. Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, guys, thanks for doing this. My question for Chris is, Chris, just what does it mean to you that Patrick was willing to work out his deal with you in mind in terms of your teammates and your guys' relationship? And then secondly, for Brett and Coach, what does it say about Patrick and then everybody understanding the team's goal in mind for this offseason?
For me, it was just about the understanding that me and Pat have about creating dynasty in Kansas City. I mean, we both have initially the same goal, create a dynasty, build something special, especially in Kansas City with Coach Reid and all the talent we have there. And we all have the same mindset. We want to keep this team together. So whatever we have to do initially to make sure that we ensure that we stay together and we also keep the guys around us together, then we can come together and do that.
Yeah, was I next on that, I guess? So I'm not worried about everything, Nate, as far as how things end up or whatever. I just want to make sure that we get down and we go through the process of getting ourselves ready to go. I think it's important that you do that day by day and, you know, work hard. So, I mean, if we do that and we stay focused, we'll be on the challenges. There are ups and downs in every league, and you got to prepare yourself to work through all that stuff. I think I answered your question. I think that was what you had in mind.
Let's go to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, guys, for doing this, and congratulations to Chris. First for Brett, you said you know this needed time to get done. But would your preference have been for you to be able to get this done last season when, you know, Chris was holding out from the off-season workouts? And because as you mentioned, you know, you don't like for things to get to the franchise tag. And for Coach, you've handled the personnel side in Philadelphia. Just curious, you know, what's your take on how Brett has handled this offseason and how difficult is it to just juggle the cap and do the things that he's done to keep his group together?
Well, look, I mean, we would love to get something done last season. I think that, you know, when you have a player as talented as Chris, I mean, you know, the sooner you can get something done, the better. What I do think it's a great example of Chris's maturity as a person and as a pro. As you mentioned, Chris wanted to get something done. We weren't able to do that last year. And in addition to that, we felt going into last offseason, losing Justin Houston and D Ford, we had to add another elite playmaker to go along with Chris, and we did that. So we trade a pick, we get Frank, and we give Frank a contract. We want to do something with Chris. We can't get it done. But there was always communication that, we'll get something, just be patient. It would have been very easy for Chris, to show up late or, to complain. But Chris was dedicated to this team. He wanted to win a Super Bowl. And the really cool thing, Coach and I talk about all the time, how is Chris going to handle the first few weeks of practice with Frank and being a little disappointed. And within a few days, I remember being at training camp last year and seeing Frank and Chris just hit it off. And I said, this is going to be pretty cool, because Frank Clark has a lot of respect for Chris Jones because he knows how good he is. And then Chris has a lot of respect for Frank. So now we're here a year later. Both these guys have been secured by the Chiefs. And again, it's a special relationship those two have. And now that we're able to both compensate them for their services on the field is a cool deal for us. And now they can just go out there and do what they do.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and ask me that same question that you had there, so everybody hears it one more time.
Yeah, you've handled the personnel side before in Philadelphia. Yeah. Just how difficult is it to do what Brett did this offseason with juggling the salary cap and getting all of these guys back this year?
Yeah, no, listen, I think Brett's done a phenomenal job with it. And I think you guys have got to know him now, and that relentless personality. Nothing's impossible. It's positive. Let's explore. Let's not be afraid to go there. Let's not say that it can't be done. Let's find a way that it can be done. All of those things are how he operates. And that again ends up being something that is contagious with people that are around him. So everybody feeds off of that energy. And that's what's made this whole thing really possible. I mean, I think if you looked around the league, people are going to say, how in the world did they get this done? Well, relationships, relentless work, planning in advance, not waiting to the moment to do it. But I mean, he's been on top of this for a while, and then he got thrown this curveball with the pandemic, which it's not a right now thing. It is right now, but it's also something that affects the future. So he's been relentless on finding a way to get it done where it's not going to kill you down the road with deals. And so there's been a lot of man hours that he's put into this. So my hat goes off to him. I've seen how these things work, and I was around two of the best in the business in Philadelphia that worked with the cap, and so was Brett. I mean, he was around those guys too, but just the job that he's done here has just been tremendous, along with his guys. But he's the leader of that.
All right, guys, we've got Dave Scrutta to close out, and then we're going to let Coach and Brett jump off the call here. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Brett. First for you, we've seen some monster contracts for defensive tackles here in the last couple of years with Aaron Donald, obviously, Fletcher Cox. Is that a sign of just maybe the scarcity of like really elite interior pass rushers? And then for Coach Reid, after that, if you could just maybe touch on kind of what your plan for the week is with rookies able to finally report today.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is a result of the scarcity of the position. There's very few all-around defensive linemen that come out every year, and everyone obviously puts a premium on pass rushers. So it's a little bit easier to find some pluggers in the middle, some big body guys. But to find a guy like Chris Jones, it's very hard to do. And when we were going through this exercise over the last few years, and once we really we're dialing it down this off season, if you are lucky enough to find someone that has the ability of Chris Jones, you're going to be picking in the top 5 or top 10 because these guys, just don't fall, and very rare, I should say, that these guys fall. They're just hard to find. There's not a lot of them, and the ones that do get picked up rather quickly. So we knew the talent we had in Chris, and we knew how important he was for our success. So again, there was really no doubt in our mind that we were going to make this work with him and his agents.
I cut out for a minute there. Who asked the question?
Dave Scretta.
Dave?
Yep.
Okay. So I think I heard the question. So what's going on now was a question with the rookies. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The plan for this week,
Yeah.
and you guys reporting.
Yeah. So Dave, Rick Burkholder and Mitch Reynolds have done a phenomenal job of setting everything up to try to be COVID safe and the best we possibly can. So that's where we start. We're starting with a couple days of testing for the players. They do back-to-back tests, and then they'll actually from there work their physical, get their equipment, and then head with Ted to do whatever media obligations they potentially have. And there are a couple days for that. That takes you into 4 days here, and then there's a point where we're going to be able to have the guys lift and meet with them and do a potential walkthrough with them. So that's kind of how that sets up, and that goes for an extended period of time. Now, the league and the union are still working through a few things, but we're Bill O'Brien with the Texans and the Chiefs. We're starting it off and kind of working through it and working through the formats that have been given to us. But listen, I just the setup, when you guys see the setup, if you have an opportunity to do that, I mean, it's phenomenal. We're going to do everything out of the stadium. The way they've set it up, I mean, we could have a ton of people social distance more than we have with our football team. And they've done that. They've got it all set up with monitors and everything else. And they've got each meeting room is set up. They've split the Arrowhead Stadium in half. So one half, the defense is on one side, the offense is on the other side. And it was something. I mean, it was really something to watch form there. So, and then the testing, the guys, they're going to be tested often. So it'll be good that way. And then it's just, listen, there's a responsibility for coaches and players to make sure we handle ourselves right when we're away from it. And we're still going to keep as much social distancing when we can. And that's obviously it's a contact sport. So, but we're going to keep it when we're not in contact. We're going to keep our social distance when we're not playing, and we have all that set up, and we're going to have our masks set up and do all the things and wash our hands, do all those fundamental things. We're going to stay on top of that.
Andy, just as a quick follow-up, Andy, when do you expect, if all goes well, you can be on the field for something resembling a practice for the first time?
Yeah, we'll see on that, Adam. They're working through that right now. So normally what they're thinking right now is, and they're working through this, but it'll be about 8 days, which ends up being about 10 with days off, where they're lifting and once we get to that point, once we get through the first 4 here with the physicals and this COVID testing. So we'll get through that, and then there'll be about 8 days, which equals 10 with the days off of lifting and meetings and potential walkthrough. So, and then we'll just take it from there. They'll have another part of a ramp up that'll last a little bit over a week, I think, where you might be able to put these padded shirts they have now. That's part of the new CBA. You kind of get into the new CBA rules, except it'd be extended a little bit. So that's what we know at this point. It seems like a pretty solid plan to allow the guys to ramp up and get themselves where they need to be. I think these guys have been working out and working change of direction and restriction with the bands that they have and the giant rubber bands that they use to work some restriction and tugs and pulls and all that. So they'll keep themselves, as much injury free as they can coming into camp. But again, we'll give them a good ramp up too.
Coach and Brett, we appreciate your time. Chris, do you want to hang on the line with us? We're going to have a few more here.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brett.
All right. Let's go to BJ Kissel. BJ, go ahead.
Thanks, Brad. Hey, and Chris, congratulations again, man. I know that it's been a long time coming and a lot of work that you would put into to get that financial security, man. So congratulations. The question I have is, besides locking in that financial security for yourself, you've spoken a lot about dynasty, and your teammates have used that word, even going down to Miami after the game. How do you feel like you getting this deal done and all the other moves this offseason have put you guys in a prime position to make that, a reality and something within your grasp?
BJ, appreciate it. I think there's something that's a culture that you have to build, and you got to have everyone around you and everybody within the organization committed to building that. And I think that's what we're doing right now. Starting from the owner, from the president, and we go down to the GM and the head coach, and relaying that message throughout the building. Not only relaying the message, but instilling the message in everyone that's in the building that we're creating something special. And once it starts to trickle down, people start to believing, and then we can put it into fruition of making it happen. And I think that's what we're doing now. Slowly but surely, we're getting all the right pieces back. And we got 20 or 22 starters coming back, which is huge. I think everybody still had the same hunger mindset that, we done tasted success, and I feel like we want to taste it again because one is good, but two is better. And I think everyone is headed on the right track with the right mind frame. Going to running it back.
Let's go to Darren Smith. Go ahead, Darren.
Thank you, Chris. And first of all, congratulations on your contract extension. I think next time you can treat for lunch at Gates or something. But I wanted to talk to you, to ask you about your emotional roller coaster since last season. Obviously, you wanted a contract extension at that time. They brought in Frank, they brought in Tyron, and, we could tell by the look on your face when camp started that you wasn't emotionally there. What advice would you give your teammates in the near future when taking Brett at his word? If you're looking to get a deal done, that he's going to get a deal done, and also, do you believe that players should take team-friendly deals to help the cap and to stay with the team, or do you believe it's the team's responsibility to figure out the cap space?
Well, I appreciate it. Whenever you're in town, you can go to Joe's or Gates or Q39, and it's on me. And another thing I like to address is emotionally face. No, listen, just because I have a crazy emotional face on my facial expression, is that I'm always out there anytime I step on the field. So once I appeared in camp, there was I told my agents and Beach, no contract talks. Let's just focus on football and finish up for this year. And my thing was that it's about being patient. I knew going into this year, next year we could talk about contracts. And this phase was COVID came about, and getting Pat deals done. Pat deal was important. The patience with that, and kind of understanding. And whatever happens, happens. I know I'm big into my faith, and I'm making sure that whatever happens, God got me covered. And, for me, I always wanted to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not about being the highest paid player. It's not about being it's about getting what you deserve and what you think can fit you. And I think me and the Chiefs came to an agreement to a certain number, and that we both could agree to, and we made it happen. But most importantly, being patient with the organization and understanding that no matter what, you determine your own destiny.
Let's go to Len Jennings. Go ahead, Len.
Hey, Chris, congratulations on the new deal. There are a series of kind of cryptic tweets that you kind of were putting out on social media, keeping a lot of fans guessing if you were going to come back or not come back. Did you feel like you were part of the process in this whole deal? Did you feel like you were getting the information that you needed? And I know you were talking about getting Pat's deal done, but how close to the process were you, especially in the relationship you had with the Chiefs?
A lot of stuff I tweet and a lot of stuff I post. You can't look at it too much because sometimes mixed signals. When I actually go back and look at my texts and my tweets, I can kind of see how people get mixed signals. But if I read something and I feel like I like it, I like to broadcast it. I'm one of those people that I like to see. I like to let people see how I think and what I read, and I do it through posting on my social media aspect. And I feel like people kind of begin to take social media too serious sometimes.
Let's go to Steve Walls. Go ahead, Steve. Steve, you got us?
Can you hear
There
me?
you go. Yep, we got you.
Hey, Chris, congratulations again, man. You've won the Super Bowl and now inked this new deal. Other guys in the past have tasted similar success and then have become sort of complacent, so to speak. Over the next 4 years, how do you make sure that you keep that hunger and that dog mentality that you brought since you've entered the league?
Listen, man, for me, it's nothing changed. It's still all about being the best I can be. It's still about being a tag leader, winning defensive player of the year. I'm always pushing myself to new heights, man. This is just one of the check marks on my journey. This is not the end of my journey. This is just the beginning. Thankfully, I'm able to spend it with the Chiefs and build a dynasty and create something special. But for me, it's about having a Hall of Fame career, getting a gold jacket. If somebody told me, honestly, you can choose 20 million or 20 sacks this year, I'll choose the sacks any day. That's just where my mind and where my heart is at. Getting sacks, winning championship rings, man, and having fun, and enjoying the process. Man. And that's where I'm at right now. The money is good to be financially stable to where I can give my kids and my family things that I wasn't fortunate enough to have when I was coming up. But for me, the game is bigger than just money. It's my passion. It's what I love to do, and I want to get the gold jacket, man.
All right, guys, we've probably got time for a couple more here. We're going to go Harold Kuntz and then Pete Sweeney to close us out. Go ahead, Harold.
Hey, Chris, congratulations, man. I know it's a top honor for you with all you've been through. My question to you, you always mention Sack Nation, and you're going to write a movie about it. In this movie, what do you think the final script ends up being with you and Frank Clark together now and a couple other guys in defensive line for the foreseeable future?
Thanks, Harold. Most importantly, man, what's crazy is the last game, the Super Bowl, I was actually whispering to Frank that they had an audio set that this might be our last game together. You got to cherish those type of moments, man. And thankfully, I'm able to spend 4 more years with my brother. It's gonna be special. It's gonna be special when we finally retire. They're gonna actually make a movie about how successful and how we was able to bend and keep this team together, and how Coach Reid came to an organization who haven't won a championship in 50 years and finally brought them their first championship. The general manager, how he was able to make sure that everything stayed intact, and Brent Tillers, who was able to finesse these contracts and to fit under the cap issue, and the head scout Ryan Nutt, Mark Donovan, the Hunt family. The list is gonna go on, but they're definitely gonna make it'll be like a Michael Jordan Last Dance, but it'll be a beautiful movie, man. But they're definitely gonna make a movie about this, and hopefully it'll be by Stagnation Productions.
Let's go to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Chris, congratulations. Well deserved. I think leading up to a contract, your first contract in the NFL, your position, a lot of the emphasis is on sacks. I was wondering, how much pressure did you feel that before you needed to sign this deal, you needed to get sacks? And now that you have it, do you feel like this will make you a better player because maybe you don't need to focus even on that as much anymore?
Thanks, Pete. But no, listen, man. I always put pressure on myself to be the best player I can be, man. It's not about the money. It's not about. Listen, I love sacks with a passion. I love pass rush. It's like I can wake up every day. I can pass rush every day. It's my passion. It's my dream. It's my goal. It's the love of my life, pass rushing, man. And I always put pressure on myself, whether it's this or not, whether I got a contract or not. I still have pressure on myself to be the best I can be, and that goal is to win the MVP. Win the best defensive player of the league. And I put that pressure on myself every year so I can challenge myself, set challenges for myself to compete at the highest level. And that's where my head is at. whether I got a contract or not, that doesn't change my position or where I stand with my goals and ambitions in this game. You know, my goal is still to wear a gold jacket when I'm finished with this game, and it's just where I'm headed, man. I don't care about the money. Thank God for the money. It's a blessing, man. It's a blessing to get this contract. It's a blessing that I'm with the Chiefs, but my ultimate goal is still to be a Hall of Famer, and that doesn't change anything.
Chris, before we let you go, Mitch Holtis is texting me like crazy. He wants to get one last one in. Go ahead, Mitch.
First of all, when do they get palm trees in Stark Vegas? Hey, as you go to this next part of your career, one thing's really apparent with Spags, and that he asks guys to do a lot of things. As you move out into this next part, asked to play both inside and outside, what about you working on playing outside, even if you're asked to play outside the tackle shoulder? How much of that goes into your preparation for these next several years of your career?
That'll be amazing. Listen, me and Spags have a great relationship, man. And I tell Spags all the time, listen, at heart, I'm a true DN, but I'm fortunate enough where you guys can use me at tackle. And anytime Spags need me to move around, play linebacker, outside linebacker, listen, I'm here for it. I don't want to, listen, I hope Spags look at this and see that I don't want him to feel like I'm restrained or he's restrained in any type of way. Use me as fit, you know. Put me anywhere on the field. I'm still gonna get sacks every week. I'm a chasing quarterback. I'm gonna make sure he feel me. So, you know, anywhere on Spags would like to use me, I'm always open for it. You know, I actually love moving around. That's when the defense. That's when I kind of get an offensive problem. You know, moving around, inside, outside. I can stand up if Spags would like it. You know, I can stand up, play middle linebacker. You know, whatever he likes. You know.
Chris, we appreciate you taking the time with us today. We'll hopefully get to see you soon here.
All right, thank you.